What happened to your business during COVID?
So what are your thoughts on private label as a business?
What is the weirdest call you have had with a supplier?
One, two, three.
Welcome to the Smartest Amazon Seller podcast. If it sounds a little bit different, it's because we're, for the first time, recording live in our SmartScout studio. We're turning into a media company. It's almost what it takes to live in this world. But it's actually a lot of fun. Today, we flew in one of SmartScout's biggest fans, Corey Ganim flew in from North Carolina to our headquarters for this conversation. And he has helped so many people have successful wholesale businesses. He has his own podcast. And so really glad. But the thing is that we actually are flipping the script on this episode where he's kind of interviewing me a little bit. And just, full transparency, I've been building a software tool for a few years. It makes its way into the podcast, but I don't think I jump into it all the time. I think it does a lot of things that people aren't always aware of. I've had people that listen to the podcast for like a year, then they start using the tool. They're like, wait, Scott, I thought this was just gonna be like everything else. This is actually different. And so he's going to ask me some questions about SmartScout, how to use it from a discovering brands perspective, from someone wholesale, but it actually applies to just anyone that wants to understand the Amazon market better. So Corey, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having me, man. Yeah, I'm looking forward to picking your brain on SmartScout and hopefully educating some folks on how they can use it in their wholesale business.
Perfect. Let's go straight to these questions. And it's just if a question is interesting to us, ask it. If it's not, let's not do it.
Okay.
And let's just go back and forth. Okay. So we just announced AMZ United 2024. And you were a speaker at 2023. How do you think the event went? Did we exceed expectations or what was your takeaways?
So I definitely think expectations were exceeded. And now you didn't ask me to say that. I'm not paid to say that. But the point is this, right?
But I'll also pay you to say it.
Hey, fair enough.
Not teasing.
But the point is this, right? I couldn't believe how up to that point there had been zero wholesale focused Amazon events. I mean, you've got Prosper, which is a huge private label event. You've got, probably 50 different Amazon events around the country that are private label focused, yet there was nothing geared towards wholesale sellers. So I think a lot of people that showed up, they didn't really know what to expect because there hadn't been anything like it that was done. But everybody I talked to, and I probably talked to 100 people at the show, they were like, I cannot wait for this next year, right? It was fantastic. A
large percentage, probably we're talking 35% of the top 10,000 Amazon sellers, they look like wholesale businesses.
Right. And it's how is there nothing that caters?
The revenue is high. Mm-hmm. We're talking, these are all probably 5 million and up sellers of the top 10,000. And so many of them are wholesalers. They're different businesses and they obviously can command a lot of value in what they can do, but just people haven't organized around this. And I think it's ignorant of what the full opportunity is. And that's what AMZ United was about. We're let's be something to somebody.
Right.
Let's not try and be everything to everyone. And by doing that, people were just excited. It almost felt like people were showing up as a Kickstarter, GoFundMe,
right.
Thank you for doing this.
Mm-hmm.
I've spent 5 years building this business. I quit my job but no one speaks to me. And,
right.
And so that was a lot of the reason we did it. And turns out running an event both takes more time and stress. I think I almost killed a few of my people on my team. And it's also pretty expensive. So, it's a big production to do it. And so it's kind of crazy that we're okay, let's do it again.
Right. Well, listen, it was so successful the first time around, it'd be foolish not to do it again. And I think you hit the nail on the head with all these other Amazon conferences out there. They try to be everything to everyone, right? Every conference is going to have a little bit of private label focus, a little bit of PPC focus, mm-hmm. a little bit of brand management focus. But there's no conferences out there that are hey, this is built by wholesale sellers for wholesale sellers. And because that's how you guys position yourself, the market spoke and it sold incredibly well.
Yeah,
so it was a no-brainer.
It did. And it exceeded our expectations, to be honest. And I like to go big. Mm-hmm. So But we had people that did online arbitrage. We had new sellers.
A lot of new sellers, a lot more new sellers than I expected.
And the service providers in general, they were floored with like the attention that they got, just because there weren't a ton of vendors. There was about 15, and for our first time show, so it was a lot of fun, and we're doing it again. We're running it back.
Well, I'm looking forward to it. I think it'll be a great one this year.
Okay. Well, thank you actually for showing up last year and leaning into it. So we're expecting to be a little bit sharper around the corners this year.
Nice. Well, yeah, it's something to improve on every year. So I think it'll be great.
Okay, I got a question for you. What is the weirdest call you have had with a supplier?
So weirdest call I've had with a supplier. Let's see, off the top of my head, and I've had so many calls with suppliers over the years.
That's kind of your thing, is like cold calling.
Yeah. So I'm certainly not afraid to pick up the phone. I've talked to, like, no exaggeration, thousands of suppliers over the years. Probably the weirdest stuff that we've gotten into is just like, I've had people share like very intimate details with me on like an initial call. And I don't know if it's just because I built good rapport or if because like they were just dying for somebody to talk to. But I mean, I've had guys tell me like that they're in the middle of a divorce and we're like 5 minutes into our like initial conversation.
I've had the same. I think I've talked to someone who like minutes in, like they were just going through something.
Yeah.
They couldn't like
they're just waiting to vent to somebody.
Yeah. They couldn't help to share like, that like they had a kid in the hospital that day.
Right.
And they're trying to work, but like once they talk to someone that they can just be a little bit open with or not, it just comes out.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I've had a lot of conversations like that. I've also had, this is not necessarily like a weird conversation, but I've had people say awful things to me on the phone. Like I had one guy who I called him up, this was years ago, and he was a brand owner. It was a decent sized brand. I think they only had like one SKU on Amazon. And so I was calling to look to open a wholesale account. And so I call him up, I tell him our revenue. I think we were like between 1 and 2 million at the time, which for any other business is a decent sized business, but for Amazon, that's not that big, right? And so the guy immediately, he's like, "Oh, well, you're not big. Like you guys are tiny." I'm like, "Okay, well, we're getting there. Like we're growing." And he just had a horrible attitude. And that was the closest. So I'm proud of myself because I didn't say anything mean. I had to hang up on him. Usually I'm the one getting hung up on, but I had to hang up on him before I said anything that I regretted. But I was like, man, like I've had a lot of those conversations over the years.
What happened to your business during COVID?
So that's actually when the business really started to take off. So actually at the beginning of 2020, really at the end of 2019, I had to go get a job working for my uncle and his insurance agency because my Amazon business just wasn't getting traction. Like we just weren't taking off. Right around this time, 3 months later after I took that job, March of 2020, COVID hits, and anything you could get your hands on was profitable. But the hard part was just getting your hands on inventory. And I remember one product in particular, it was a Swan, was the brand name, hydrogen peroxide. One of our suppliers was getting a truckload in. So he said, "Corey, how much do you want?" I was like, "Oh, maybe, half a pallet." It was like 420 units. I was like, "Oh, this will be, a month and a half worth of supply." Well, we get it in, we send it to FBA. That ASIN goes to top 10 in the health and household category. We sold 420 units in like 25 minutes, like literally with the snap of a finger. And I've kicked myself ever since that we didn't buy that by the truckload. But that was one of the COVID wins that's just not a
cow. Did you price it well?
I mean, we tried to price it to the point where we weren't going to get, flagged by Amazon for price. I think we bought them we paid probably around $1 per bottle, and I think we were selling them around $12.
I think the whole pricing thing was silly because we ended up getting hit on like products that like were not egregious at all.
Or just weren't essential.
Like literally it was a cough drop, and we were about $1 above our average selling price. And yeah, you're right. Our repricer moved it up. But I'm like, you're going to kill us over this one?
Right. It's like of all the things that, you know, probably done some worse stuff than that. It's like of all the things, like do this.
It's like, I would love it. I would like it more if I got punished where we were like, actually were like priced high.
Right.
This was not high at all. Cool.
So what are your thoughts on private label as a business?
Interesting. I think private label is more challenging than people think. It's actually more challenging than ever right now in 2024. Right. It is actually one of the businesses that's just definitely getting harder as there's a lot of Chinese brands. So if you're in the commodity like space, like you definitely have to know what you're doing. I saw one private label. This is a success story where he basically had to lose money for 18 months before he could finally like price it.
Was that the garlic press?
It's Zule Kitchen.
Zule Kitchen garlic press. Yeah,
like,
that's exactly what I was thinking.
Yeah, no, they tell a good story,
Yeah.
but it's like, it's true. I believe it. Like they're a phenomenal private label brand, and not a lot of people can do what they do at this point. And so, just kind of an example of the challenges of private label. But I'll say like, what I would do is like, don't go over the commodity stuff. If your product could succeed on Kickstarter, go that way.
Right.
Like, I'm not saying launch it on Kickstarter, but like that's kind of the direction of like, oh, this product, like I can build a community around this. I can build like people that like this hobby or activity, like they like this so much that they would just buy it on Kickstarter.
Right.
That's kind of the direction that I would go, where like, you know, your story like actually matters.
So go back to day one of Buy Boxer. If you could go back to Buy Boxer day one, would you be a wholesale business or would you be a private label business?
Good question. I think even in 2017, we talked seriously about private label, and I probably will answer it in the same way. We just didn't have that opportunity. We just didn't have that mindset of it. But what would I have done in 2017? I do know that we wouldn't have even had the right focus for it because we were like in multiple categories.
Right.
I would just choose a subcategory and do it right.
Right.
You know, put on your big boy pants and like actually learn a subcategory, talk to multiple suppliers, like criticize the subcategory. What is it missing?
Right.
What are the leaders like? What are they lacking? And like we hit the example like golf. You know, there's so many golf accessories. Fantastic subcategory to be in because there's lots of accessories. Sure, your supplier could be in China, but just just dominate it.
Right.
Don't build one golf product and then move over to the other categories.
I agree. I think that's a huge mistake that private label sellers make is they look for home runs in different categories, right?
Yeah.
Instead of building out like a golf accessory brand, they might launch a golf accessory, then they might turn around and launch a welding product, or
they're playing
around.
the game. They're playing the game of like finding winning products. Like I want a winning product when that's just like that's.
You should be focused on building a brand.
That's a coin flip.
Right.
How does a large wholesaler get into private label?
So
or do you think it's even worth it?
So I think it can be worth it for a wholesale seller to get into private label. I think it depends on what your goal is, right?
Yeah.
If you're just trying to generate the most cash flow in the shortest amount of time possible, which is really what a wholesale business is designed to do, then I say don't worry about private label because it's going to take a while to get your product to be cash flow positive, assuming you're doing everything right.
Yeah.
But if your goal is to diversify in some way or create some asset that you can eventually exit or create a brand with a following and a community around it, then it's a fantastic way to hedge against what can be fickle, right? Some of these brands that could cut you off at any time in your wholesale business.
So in 2024, if you're a large wholesaler and you're going to launch private label, I'd actually go big. Like I'm talking like, everyone wants to find out how cheap can it make a launch.
I like the high average sale price products.
I'd be like let's go big. Let's find an expensive product and let's go in a territory that not a lot of people go. So we're talking a $50,000 to $100,000 launch. Now, you can build your wholesale business just to get to that point where like, you know what, I can invest $100,000 because I'm going to actually care about it.
Right.
If you're a large wholesaler and you launch a $5,000 launch, you're not going to care about it.
Exactly. You're not going to be as committed to the success. And I think the big private label guys realize this. In fact, there's a guy that I was talking to recently, very successful private label seller, been doing it for over a decade, exited 2 brands, working on his 3rd and his 4th. He's in the process of, it's a $100,000 private label launch. The sale price on his product is going to be about $150 per unit. And that was his exact point. He's like, Corey, why would I want to play in these lower price ranges where Chinese competitors are going to undercut me by 50% and steal my market share when I could invest a much bigger amount of money, but I know what works, I have the track record, and I'm very reasonably assured that this product's going to go well. Like my upside's way higher in that scenario as opposed to launching, a $20 product where competition is going to be cutthroat.
So you work with a lot of beginning sellers. Like, what's your advice for them?
So of all the Amazon wholesale sellers that I work with, right, the ones that are on the newer end that are just starting to get into wholesale, there's a very key distinction on which ones of those become successful and which ones of those it's just like the business flavor of the month. So the beginners that truly become successful, they're very consistent in their inputs, right? So if that means they're in the stage where they got to reach out to suppliers, they're setting a daily goal for X number of suppliers that I'm going to reach out to, and they're hitting it every day. Because the difference between those people and the ones that maybe, call 100 suppliers in a week and then don't touch it for 2 weeks, the people that are consistent, they're getting those daily reps in, they're honing their pitch, they're just getting better every day. And it's just a matter of time before they land profitable accounts or find profitable products. Like success is virtually guaranteed when you set a daily goal and you hit it every day. So what's it like to have business partners in your Amazon business specifically? What are the pros? What are the cons? I'm sure there are a lot of both.
Having a business partner is like some of the high of highs and the low of lows. Because like when things go well, it's a party.
Right.
I've partnered with brothers. And that's again, like a hairy issue because you bring work home with you. Mm-hmm. And I have actually seen some of the positives and the negatives.
Right.
So now, any business partner, you really should go in with a long-term focus. And if they're not there, if they're not like an even-keeled person, it's gonna be pretty hard.
Right.
But if someone complements skills really well, it can increase your chances of success. Where maybe you're not gonna become a billionaire as fast, but like maybe you achieve that in a little bit more of a predictable way.
Right.
Because there's this is kind of just like a cliche almost to say, but 90% of businesses, they fail. I like to build up scenarios where I succeed 99% of the time.
Even in the worst case scenario.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and I think the point that you made about hiring a partner to kind of complement you is key, right? Because if let's say you're a big picture strategy guy, but you suck at operations. If you partner with somebody who is also a big picture strategy guy that sucks at operations, then you're just basically they're not complimenting you in any way. Like if you're a strategy guy, you want to hire an operations guy or partner with an operations guy. And if you're an operations guy, you want to partner with a strategy guy. So I see that as being those are the best partnerships in my experience.
Yeah. Corey, thanks for coming and chatting. This was a great conversation. Learned a lot, and it was actually really just easy to learn a lot from you. And so, but like all good podcasts, we got to wrap it up. Thanks for coming all the way into our studio, and that's the pod.
1, 2, 3.